I've combined all of the ideas into one and differ from anything else that I own in a good or bad way. Let this. To be honest, I kind of think I nailed it. I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits. Oh, would you look at that? You can see so much. It's kind of nice. Do we do this? Hello, I'm Nora, and you're watching also known as Nora Knits. Thanks so much for coming to hang out with me today, you guys. I've got another podcast episode for you, and you may have noticed already, we have a finished object. We're on a roll now, huh? So I've officially finished my ranunculus. She is all done. I absolutely love it. I have some finished object photos that I can share with you now. And I thought that I would tell you a little bit of my review of my ranunculus. So of course, this is the ranunculus pattern by Midori Hirose. Such a popular pattern. Everyone and their mother has knit it at this point, but this is my first. And overall, I am super, super happy with how it came out. I did knit this off gauge from what was recommended. And so if you guys have been hanging out with me for a little bit, you know that we had to do a lot of math to get to where we are. But really in the end, I just wound up knitting the size 10 and looking for the fit of closer to the smaller sizes. So my bust is about 42 inches or so. I do have all of my measurements in the description box, but I wound up getting the exact fit that I was going for with this. It still is a little bit oversized in the body, and the fit is exactly what I wanted. So that is good. Think. I knit this on US size 7, 4.5 millimeter needles, and I used those the whole way through. I never dropped down a needle size. I didn't change anything. Now, let's go through the things that I love and then the things that I don't love as much with the finished object. Overall, like I said, I'm super, super happy, but if I'm nitpicking, and especially if I am gonna knit this again, I want to make sure that I remember these things. So the things that I love are the sleeves. I did go ahead and do the German short row diagonal cuff as it is stated in the pattern, and finished, of course, with the I-cord bind off. And I really love the way that it looks. Now, if I were to knit this again, I'd probably omit the diagonal cuff with the German short rows just to see how I like that instead. I don't think that it makes such a significant difference. Now, I do think that if I had knit the sleeves just an inch shorter, I would love the diagonal cuff and would not consider doing it any other way. But based on where I wound up, the shortest point of the diagonal cuff is hitting exactly really where I want the whole sleeve to hit. So then the actual part that is longer from the German short rows is coming down just a little bit further than I think I would have liked it to. It's not bad by any means. Nothing's wrong with it. I just feel like for the effort to go into the German short rows, which is minimal effort, but still some, it was kind of unnecessary for the length that I knit it to. Now, again, that being said, if I had knit the sleeves just an inch or a half inch shorter, I think I would love the diagonal cuff. So that's something though that I love the fit of the sleeves. I love the amount of like blousiness and drapiness. I do love all of the eyelet detailing. As much as this really gave me a headache, I think that this whole yoke section is just so beautiful. And honestly, like, let's take one more moment now for the color of this sweater. Frank Ochre and I are gonna have a long and happy relationship together. If you are just joining us, then you might not know that I knit this in Malabrigo Susurro in the colorway Frank Ochre, which has just been a long time love of mine. And I think that it really, really shines, quite literally, in this blend, which is a merino linen silk blend. And while we're on the topic of yarn, let me move into the way that this fabric is actually wearing. So when I picked this thing up off of the blocking board, it was like a sheet of paper. I did soak it to block it. I did feel like I needed that little bit extra manipulation in the blocking. But it was pretty comical when I picked it up off of the blocking board and it was like stiff. I mean, it was like a sheet of paper. It was kind of funny. It also meant that the seam where it was laying flat and blocked totally creased. It literally, it's part of me now. It looks like I put a seam into the sleeves. Now, of course, the natural properties of linen, it's a super creasy fabric, but it also, as you wear it, softens up. So I'm not really concerned about that long term. It was just something that I totally didn't think about when I put it on the blocking mats. Otherwise, the drape of this is insane. It's incredible. It's lightweight. It is, of course, a more summer fiber that I knit into a long sleeve. But the whole point was that I really wanted something that was going to act like a long sleeve shirt, a long sleeve blouse, and not so much as a sweater. And I really do feel like I achieved that. Like, to be honest, I kind of think I nailed it. As far as the intention that I had for my finished object and what I got in the end. So I love that about this. The fabric, so the yarn is incredible and I would 100% work with it again. It does have those little grassy bits and those kind of long fibers sticking out. So it creates this sort of halo, but not in a mohair or fuzzy way. Well, it's a little bit fuzzy. But really, you see these long fibers sticking out here and there. And I imagine with wear that'll go away, but also it doesn't bother me in the meantime. With blocking and everything, it's softened up so incredibly. So, I mean, if I really feel here and there, you get one kind of pokey, grassy bit, but it's really not bad at all. So love that too. The neckline. So this was my big struggle, was trying to decide with my gauge being off, but wanting the smaller neckline of the two options provided in the pattern. I struggled with the amount of stitches that I should start with.
Will this fit over my head? Oh my gosh, I don't think it will. Let's see if this works. Oh gosh. Okay.
So in my version, I decided to kind of meet in the middle between the smaller and larger neckline stated in the pattern. And I did cast on 45 stitches. And then I increased to the suggested smaller neckline increase for my size. And after that, I did do the German short rows in the front as well as in the back. This is going to take me into a little bit of a con. I do feel like, and you can see it now, that this really doesn't want, it kind of wants to sit up right on my, what is this part? Is this my like trachea? Someone, please share your anatomical wisdom with me. I think that this is my trachea and it's sitting like on it. I think if I were to make this again, I would omit the short rows in the front, which a lot of people have done and suggested to do that. I think that would give me a little bit more space. I can get this over my head pretty comfortably, but I can't just throw this on and not think about it. I do have to be very conscious to not mess up my makeup if I have it done already. So it's just a touch too snug, I'd say. And I do feel like I wish that this sat just like that. And that would be more comfortable, but also I think a little bit more flattering because as I move, it also is kind of wanting to do this. So that I'm like not crazy about, but not enough that I would change it. It's fine. See how creasy that linen is? It wanted to stay like that after I did it. So that's a little bit of a con, but that's partially my fault with my gauge being off and the amount of stitches that I decided to cast on. I think I would still cast on the amount of stitches if I was knitting at this gauge. I do just think that dropping down this neckline that little bit, omitting the short rows, would kind of negate that problem. So that's con number one. Con number two was my own fault in that I was terrified of this cinching in at the hem. And so I decided not to drop down a needle size. But I do think the nature of this fabric in particular, I'm getting a little bit more of an A-line shape, which I'm not as crazy about, but it also doesn't bug me a ton. I did a standard bind off on the edge, well, bind off in pattern, so knit the knits, purl the purls, and standard bind off otherwise. And I think that I did a good job of making sure that it was nice and open. But the thing with this fabric is that there's no real stretch to the fiber itself. So as soon as I blocked it, it was like, and that's how it is now. So it's a little bit more A-line or a little bit more flared on the end than I would like. But I think if I had to pick between it being too flared or too cinched, I'd go with too flared. So those are really the cons that I have. Oh, one more. In just this region here, right in the upper arm, I feel like I could have done with like 3 to 5 more stitches. So if I were knitting again at the same gauge, knitting the same size, I would probably just pick up a few more stitches under the arm when I get to that point in the raglan. Other than that, I did follow the pattern verbatim and wound up as overwhelming as it was when I first looked at it. Once I really broke it all down and took the time to dissect and cross out parts of the pattern that weren't for my size, I found it to be pretty simple. That being said, too, if you are crossing out for things that aren't relevant to your size, just be wary, because once in a while, and I think it was happening in the sleeves, it would say for size 10, do this, 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 and this, and then go follow the instructions for the size 9. So I was glad that I was just crossing this out on a digital PDF and not in person, because I would have like put a Sharpie over that thing and then wouldn't have known what to do from there. So those are my notes on the ranunculus. I think that was kind of everything that I wanted to say about it. I think I'm going to get a ton of wear out of this. I really love it. What was really cool was when we went to go do the finished object photos, we were walking into the woods, which I can't tell you how many times I've gone to do these finished object photos. And here I am like walking through the woods in a pair of heels and jeans and this nice sweater. And everyone's like going for a hike, wondering who the heck I am and what I'm doing there. And I don't know why that's a theme in my life, but it has been. So we're walking into the woods and this girl was walking out and she was like, "Oh my God, I love your sweater. That's so beautiful." I was like, I win. I freaking win. I did it. I have the prettiest sweater in the whole world. That was literally how I felt. Like, what a good feeling the first time your finished object leaves the house and someone compliments it. So really exciting. I also, in that same hand, I have posted now on Instagram at aka Nora Knits the finished object photos for my Like pullover by Sorry Nordland that I finished and had last week. And I also have worn that so many times since I finished it already. That has been my go-to sweater, and I wore it to work last weekend and I got compliments while I was there, and that was so fun. This girl that I was working with, she's like, "Oh my gosh, Nora, I love your sweater." And I was like, "Oh, thanks, I made it." And everyone in the room stopped. They're like, "Wait a second, you made that?" I was like, I did, I knit it. I knit this, yeah. And they've seen me knitting before. They kind of know that I knit, but they've never seen anything come to fruition and then show up. I generally don't like to work in a sweater because I get really warm when I'm working. So it was just freezing Saturday morning and I decided to throw it on anyway. I was cooking by the end of the day, by the way. What a warm sweater that is. But it was worth it. I got a compliment. So those are my finished objects, or this is my finished objects, and I'm so excited. This ranunculus from, well, not this ranunculus, because we had a few false starts, but from the day that I very first cast on my ranunculus sweater to the date it was bound off and thrown in the wash, or, well, you know what I mean, was 50 days. And I'm just really proud that it's done, and I'm excited to have it. I'm excited to own it. I already love it. And I just hope that I wear it as much as I think I'm going to. So 50 days this one took officially. And that's that for finished objects for real now. Let's move into some whips. Let's talk about one we haven't chatted about in a little while. So the first whip I'm going to chat about today is my Korsaven cardigan by Tanya Hodney. And this has been an ongoing project. This one has been on the needles for quite some time at this point. Let's do the math. Holy cow, you guys, we are on day 97 of the Korsaven. So that number going up is unsettling, but not much has been done. So I did say in the last episode that my plan moving forward with this is it's going to be such a staple piece in my wardrobe that I don't feel the need to meet a deadline with it, but I also don't want it to fall to the wayside because I want it. I love it. I want it. And so my plan and intention is to get at least a basket weave done a day, and then she's done when she's done. So right now we have 8.5 basket weaves, and I have to double check the pattern to see how many I need to do overall. What I remember from my last Korsaven cardigan is that there aren't decreases in the sleeves and only at the cuff, which gives you that slight balloon, which I do really like the look of. However, I am considering counting the amounts of decreases that I am expected to make at the cuff and maybe starting to introduce them at the elbow. So it looks like probably pretty soon, because I do think with this color and just the style of the cardigan that I'm picturing for this version, I can see it being just more of a tapered sleeve than a balloon sleeve. I think I might get a little bit more of that staple basic wear out of it. That being said, if it seems like too much of a hassle, I'm probably just not going to bother doing that. And I think that that's okay. Let me see. I think I could try this on for you guys just so that we could get a refresher of where we're at. I do have the neckline here on some try it on tubing, and this sleeve side is waiting to be picked up for its sleeve. Certainly, I would never put this over my ranunculus. And let's see, no, we're not dropping any stitches. Don't even need the try it on tubing. And you guys know that I want to modify this pattern slightly to have a double knit button band instead of the ribbed button band that's in the pattern. Trying this on, it does get me really excited to have this done. I don't know what it is. It's probably just the fact that I've knit this before, that it's not new or exciting. I know what it's gonna look like. And so it's turned into just a little bit of a slog for me. But again, it's a staple. It's gonna be a reliable garment once it's done. I'm not concerned about a deadline on finishing it. It's just a matter of getting it done. So it does seem like, though, I'm at a point where if I want to do a more tapered sleeve, I should probably get to doing those decreases sooner than later. So maybe I'll pick up the other sleeve and wait until this video goes out. If you guys have any suggestions for modifying this into a tapered sleeve, my concern being kind of where am I going to do the decreases to... OC's declared a water break. Good girl. Good girl. I think that I might just pick up the sleeves, or pick up the stitches on the other sleeve side and kind of get it to this point while I wait for this video to go up. So if you guys have any recommendations on how I can modify this to get a tapered sleeve without messing too much. I mean, obviously we're going to have to disrupt the basket weave pattern if I am going to decrease sooner, which I'm guessing is why they don't do that in the original pattern. But I think as long as I do it in a neat way, it wouldn't be too bad. I mean, plenty of sweaters have a tapered sleeve and it interrupts a pattern on a sleeve. So as long as I do it as tidy and uniformly as possible, I'm not too concerned about it. So if you do have any recommendations on a good way to modify this, definitely let me know. And in the meantime, we're going to try to do a basket weave a day, which I'm also realizing we're going to be well over 100 days into this project once it's done. And again, that's okay. Now, in more exciting news, since the last time I saw you, I do have a brand new whip, and that is my Thanksgiving Day vest, which by the time you're watching this, you may have seen that I put out a video, my vest pattern roundup, and those were all of the patterns that I was really loving when I was looking for a pattern to use for my Thanksgiving Day vest. However, of course, I couldn't knit them all, and I did have some minor criteria to match in order to knit this vest for myself for Thanksgiving. So the first one being that I am using the thrifted yarn that I found, and that is by the company Pack-A-Peds, and it's a yarn that I found at the thrift store, and I'm holding it with a strand of Drops Kid Silk mohair. So I have a fingering weight, hand-dyed, superwash yarn and a strand of mohair. And so I was looking for something in that sort of DK weight area. And I also knew, obviously, we don't have a ton of time before Thanksgiving, but also I just wanted something that was going to be kind of fun and easy to knit up, as in the majority of it would be stockinette in the round. So I really didn't want anything with texture, but I wanted to have a little bit of fun with it, considering the fact that the color of knitting this in is not one I would normally. So the idea being the end product would be festive and very fall. The color is called Harvest, and it wouldn't exactly be something I'd reach for every day. Therefore, whatever it wound up looking like, I'm really okay with. I just wanted to play a little bit more than worry about the finished object. So I have made some good progress on this. Oh, the pattern. You want to know the pattern? So the one that I decided on, which I'm so curious to know if you could tell in the pattern roundup video that I had already been working on one of those. It is the So Frill Blouse by Nadine Jouerg Fauvel, Madame Fauvel Knits, I think it is, on Instagram. And so it is a pattern that is traditionally a blouse. It has ribbed long sleeves, and it's typically knit in 2 strands of mohair. And I had seen a version knit up by Moomy Loomy Yarn on Instagram where she omitted the sleeves and wore this as a vest. And her version was knit in this variegated yarn, which I think is what really sold me this idea of this sort of swampy colorway being knit in this like girly pattern. I just really liked the contradiction of it. And again, I'm having some fun, but I have the interest and excitement of these little frilly sleeves, which I'm all about. So let me show you where I'm at, and then I'll have to dissect things a little bit more. I am keeping this, by the way, in my thrifted bucket bag from J. Crew. This thing has been awesome. I've just been carrying this all around the house, and it mostly lives next to bed, because I have been doing a lot of this knitting, well, all of this knitting really, before bed, in bed, before sleeping, in bed, before I go to sleep at night. And that's where all of this has gotten done. So, current progress. Does it look like anything? So what we have here, let me hold it up in a little bit of a better orientation. We currently have a good bit of the back done, and then a little bit of like wings on the front. So the way that this is constructed is you knit the back first, and then you pick up at the shoulders and knit your way down. The pattern does feature this sort of button placket without a buttonless button placket, and it creates just this nice little crisp V-neck, almost like a Henley would have. And then you get to move into the stockinette round in the body. So I mentioned that this is knit in 2 strands of mohair. That's the recommended yarn for this pattern. And let me check the gauge. In the pattern, it states that the suggested needle size for the main body of the sweater is a US 7 4.5 millimeter needle. And the gauge that she's getting is 18 by 25 in your 4x4 swatch. I am getting, no, I didn't gauge swatch. I know, guys, come after me. I didn't gauge swatch, but The pattern also only comes up to a size extra large, which says that it is what is 110 centimeters in inches? So the pattern only goes up to a size extra large, which is 110 centimeters or 43 and a half-ish inches. I knew I was going to be playing around with this no matter what. I just really liked the pattern. I also want to say that in Madame Fauvel Knits Instagram, I did just see yesterday that she was looking for testers for another pattern in larger sizes and said that she had some people requesting those larger sizes. And so she's moving towards adding extra sizes to her patterns. So we feel good about that. But I knew I was going to be playing around with this and I didn't mind. I mean, she says it's meant for 2 strands of mohair, and here I am with a fingering weight and a mohair held together. So I just decided to go ahead and cast on the largest size. I figured I would get the gauge as I went and just play with it as I go. So unblocked, I am getting closer to 23 stitches per inch, which she's getting 18 stitches per inch, which I was just surprised. I assumed I'd be knitting this at a bigger gauge, but apparently it's smaller now. Again, it's unblocked. That being said, though, too, with the 4.5 millimeter needles, I really like the fabric that I'm getting unblocked. And so when I do block this, I am probably going to steam block it and not stretch it, rather just let the stitches let the stitches I'm going to not stretch it, but rather just let the stitches settle. That was terrible. So that being said, I should probably give it a steam block real quick, just to double check where things are at. But essentially, I cast on with the largest size. I went ahead and knit what was suggested on the back panel, picked up my stitches and knit the front panel. And at that point, I was supposed to be ready to connect under the arm. And let me show you, because I haven't changed the front pieces yet, kind of where we're at. Now, it is not lost on me that looking at this, you're probably not going to be able to really tell where things are hitting as it's curling up. And with all the cords on it and stuff, it's a little tricky to tell. But what I can confirm for you is that this is not ready to knit in the round just yet. I do think that if I really had to, I could have joined under the arm and started knitting in the round, but it would have been tucked way up under my arms. And for a vest that I do plan to wear over a white blouse, I don't think that that's going to work. So basically what I decided to do was just keep going with the increases on the back. I did a little bit of math to figure out approximately how many stitches I should have. And I'm kind of working towards that, but also trying on as I go. So actually, I think where I'm at right now is I have added, I think, 5 additional rows of increases. And I think tonight I'm going to add 2 or 3 more. And then I'm going to jump to the front and do the same thing. Now, the only thing is that where the V-neck part is sitting, I'm happy with that depth. So the pattern suggests that you should pick up the button placket and knit that before you connect the front 2 pieces together. So I have a little bit of hacking to go, but this is very much a try it on as you go knit for me, and that's okay. I am keeping this mindset that I am experimenting, I'm having fun with this, and right now it doesn't bother me. So that's where I'm at with this pattern so far. I think my plan is once I do get this into a state where I can put it over my head and under my arms, I'm going to decide at that point how much body I'm going to knit. The way that the original pattern is, it's suggested that you knit the majority of the body in this ribbing that's going to give you a really hugging and cinched look, which isn't the look that I'm going for. I'm really knitting this based off of the upper half of the sweater. I like the little button plackety thing and the frilly sleeves. So I'm going to kind of wing it after that. What I think right now that I'm going to do is probably knit to my natural waist in just stockinette in the round, and then I'll probably do a split hem with a few inches of ribbing. I think that is going to give me the closest to the look I'm going for, but who knows? Anything can change before then. Let's talk for a second about the yarn. I had 3 skeins of the Packaped Superwash Alpaca sock yarn. They are a 20% superfine alpaca, 65% superwash wool, and 15% nylon blend. They're a sock yarn, and they are hand dyed. They're all from the same dye lot. But I started thinking last week, like, okay, hang on a second. How do you do helical knitting with 3 skeins of yarn so that you have a very balanced look? I also at that point hadn't even looked into what the yarn looked like worked up, which I did, and I will put the Ravelry page here. It is a self-striping yarn, it looks like, so there's a lot of funky things that were going on, and suddenly I was terrified. So we put it out onto Instagram, what you guys recommended, and you had great suggestions for me. But then I also realized the additional element of the first half of this is knit flat. So helical knitting, like what? Who? How? Oof. So then I got to Googling, and essentially I've combined all of the ideas into one. Let's break it down. I'm getting excited. So sorry. I really like the way it's working up. So for starters, let's just talk about how I'm managing my 3 skeins of yarn. And this was a suggestion from one of you on Instagram. So in order to make sure that the 3 skeins of yarn were going to be evenly distributed so that if there was any variation from one skein to the next, what I decided to do was split each skein in half. Right off the bat, they were all split into 50-gram balls. So I have 6 different 50-gram balls of this yarn. From each of those skeins, they were labeled 1A and 1B. 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B. And what I then did with those 50-gram balls of yarn was pair them up so that it is, and let's hope that I say this right, we have them arranged with 3B and 1A, 1B and 2A, 2B and 3A. So each 50-gram ball is paired up with a neighbor from another skein. With that arrangement, I'm starting with 3B and 1A paired together, and I'm knitting flat. So what I am currently doing to ensure that my variegated yarn is working up nice and like evenly distributed is I am knitting right side back down the wrong side in yarn 3B, then switching to yarn 1A and knitting right side, wrong side. So every time I've completed a wrong side row, I am swapping out my Packaped's Harvest yarn for the other coordinating part of the pairs that I've created. And so I'm getting essentially 2 rows of each yarn segment that I've created. So my each individual 50-gram ball is working up 2 rows before I switch to another one. And I'm still working through the first 2 50-gram balls that I created, and I think so far so good. I also am holding it with 1 strand of mohair, and it would have been a lot easier, I think, to just have 2 strands of mohair going, 1 for either 50-gram ball, but right now I've been doing it the hard way and essentially just switching that single strand back and forth depending on which strand of the Packapeds I'm using. I hope that makes sense. All I'm doing right now to manage changing back and forth is I am carrying the yarns up this side, and I'll address all of that when I get to the finishes. So far so good. I will give you some close-ups of the fabric. I would say with the exception of a couple of spots of pooling here and there, I am really pleased with the way that the variegation is actually working out. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit surprised in how well this is going so far, just considering all of the circumstances. So essentially now, once those two skeins are gone, well, okay, when I get to the point of knitting in the round, I will just start helical knitting with those two 50-gram balls of yarn that I created. And after those two are gone, I am going to pick up the next little pair that I've created and start helical knitting with those. It's going to be really interesting to see how the working in the round with the variegated yarn differs from working it flat. But like I said, I'm really happy with the exception of those few little spots of pooling. I'm not really concerned about it, especially that major brown spot is on the back. I'm really happy with how it's working up so far. So far, so good. I think all things considered, it's going according to plan. And I am hoping by the next time we chat, I am working in the round. Like I said, I think tonight I'm just going to do a couple more increase rows on the back before I've just been taking notes of how many additional increases I've done compared to what was recommended in the pattern. And I'm going to add the same amount of increases to the front of increased rows to the front as I did on the back. So I'm hoping that this is going to work out. But again, in the end, if it doesn't, I don't care. And that's a really liberating feeling. So if it's been a while since you worked on a project just for like the sake of experimenting or having fun with something, I can highly recommend the process to just let all idea of finished object go. Let that go out the window and just have a little bit of fun playing. I mean, even just pairing this really bright, vibrant harvest yarn with this chocolatey brown mohair felt like a little bit of a risk, but I am getting the exact fabric that I was hoping to get. I think that the chocolate brown is cooling down and toning down the orange as much as I wanted it to, while still showing through that this is a variegated yarn. And it's just something really different from what I've done before and different from anything else that I own in a good or bad way. So that is my So Frill blouse by Nadine Jouer-Falvel. And so far, so good on that. We'll see if we could get it done for Thanksgiving. Oh, so let me tell you how long it's been. So far, that project has been on the needles for 4 days, which I'm realizing that's actually a good amount of progress for 4 days. So pretty impressed with myself and my snail stitches. And yeah, that's where we're at on that one. Okay, I'm sitting here thinking like, what else do I have to talk about with whips? But those are my only whips right now. So that's what happens when you cast two things off in the same week. Those are the current whips. Let's go into plans. Let's talk plans. First of all, the next video that you're going to see from me will be my winter knitting plans. And so I will definitely be talking about all of the plans that I have in that video. And that being said, my goal for the next week is going to be, like I said, just making the minimal progress on the corsabin and getting this vest to in the round knitting. I would love it if in between now and then I could cast on my next major project for the year. And I'm going to keep it a secret for just a little bit longer because I want to share it with you in the winter knitting plans video. But essentially, I have a goal to have one finished object for Thanksgiving, and that is my vest, and another finished object for Christmas. And I'm really excited about that one. I have all of the yarn. And so yeah, my winter knitting plans are going to be coming out on, should be Tuesday. Again, I'm going to try to keep up when I do my second videos to have that come out on a Tuesday. And just the timing, my Saturday morning podcast will always be 9:30 a.m. But as I sprinkle in the others, they're just going to be kind of as I can and whatever time they upload by. So definitely stay posted on Instagram at akanoraknits if you want more details on when I post those extra videos. And other than that, you guys, I think that's all I have for you today. Definitely make sure that you give this video a like and please subscribe if you're enjoying this content. Huge thank you to you guys for getting us to now 4,000 subscribers. It baffles me every day. You know that if you've been here for a little bit. But also, if you are just joining us, like I said, I'm Nora. I'm coming to you from a small farm in Connecticut. And my philosophy on knitting is that the imperfections are what make something so perfectly handmade. And if you're joining us here, it means that you're feeling a little bit lighthearted about your knitting. We are very much welcome to laugh at ourselves here. And I embrace the mistakes. I embrace all of the little things that I'm going to learn along the way. And I hope that you would do the same with me. So, big ol' thanks for watching, you guys. Make sure that you like, subscribe, ring the bell, do the things that YouTube likes. Big ol' thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, you guys. Bye!